Hook life brings us face to face with a difficult truth. No matter how much we want to hold on, nothing lasts forever. People enter our lives, they shape us, and sometimes they leave. And when they do, we're left with the heavy question, how do I let go? How do I stop caring so deeply for someone who no longer shares the same bond? Maybe you've asked yourself, can I really detach without losing a part of myself? This is where Stoicism offers clarity. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics didn't teach us to run from our emotions or pretend they don't exist. Instead, they showed us how to face them with strength. Emotional detachment, in the Stoic sense, isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about reclaiming your power so you can live with clarity and peace no matter what changes around you. Today on Sculpted Grace, we'll explore 12 Stoic lessons that can transform how you see relationships, setbacks, and emotional struggles. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical rules you can live by every single day. If you've ever found yourself holding on too tightly to someone or something, these lessons will help you loosen that grip and step into a steadier, stronger version of yourself. Lesson 1. Embrace the impermanence of life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." In the same way, our attachment to people is often shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. We build a narrative that someone will always be by our side, that a friendship or relationship will remain unchanged. But Stoicism reminds us of something vital. All relationships are transient. This might sound harsh at first, but it's actually a path to freedom. Think of it like holding sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Life works the same way. People leave through distance, drift, or death. When we accept this, we stop clinging, and instead we begin to appreciate every moment for what it is, temporary, precious, and fleeting. I've lived this lesson myself. A friendship I've valued for over a decade slowly dissolved. At first, I fought against it, trying to revive the bond we once had. But the more I resisted, the more pain I felt. Only when I accepted that the friendship had run its course did I find relief. Marcus Aurelius would have said the same. Acceptance of impermanence doesn't weaken us. It liberates us. When you learn to embrace impermanence, you suffer less when change inevitably comes. You stop expecting permanence where none exists, and you free yourself to live more fully in the present. Lesson 2. Master your emotions through rational thought. One of the biggest misconceptions about emotions is that they control us. We say things like, "I couldn't help it. I was just so angry," or "My sadness got the better of me." But the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, challenged this belief. They taught that emotions don't arise out of events themselves, but from the way we interpret those events. Marcus put it simply, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What this means is that the storm inside you isn't caused by what someone said or did, but by the meaning you've attached to it. Emotional detachment starts here by realizing that your mind can govern your emotional state. Consider this example. You send a heartfelt message to someone close to you, and hours go by without a response. Instantly, your mind races. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Do they not care? Before long, you're anxious, frustrated, maybe even angry. But look closely. Is it their silence that caused your suffering or your interpretation of it? The fact is simple. They haven't replied. Everything else is a story you've told yourself. I once experienced this firsthand with a close friend. Their sudden silence left me spiraling, convinced I had damaged our friendship. But the reality? They were simply busy. My suffering wasn't from their actions, but from the story I invented. When I remembered Marcus's advice to focus on my own thoughts, not the outside event, I realized I had the power to stop feeding that storm. The Stoic practice is to question your thoughts instead of accepting them as truth. Emotions will always arise, but you decide whether to let them dominate you. By challenging your perceptions, you master your emotions. And when you master your emotions, you regain control of your peace. Lesson 3. Practice negative visualization. At first glance, the idea of deliberately imagining loss feels unsettling. Why would anyone want to rehearse losing someone they care about or picture life without something they love? But for the Stoics, this practice, known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, was one of the most powerful tools for emotional resilience. Marcus Aurelius and Seneca both encouraged reflecting on worst-case scenarios, not to become fearful or pessimistic, but to prepare the mind and lessen the sting of inevitable change. When you imagine loss ahead of time, you're not tempting fate. You're training your heart to accept life as it truly is, impermanent and ever-changing. I once had a dear friend who was considering moving abroad. For weeks, I resisted even thinking about it, clinging to the hope that plans would fall through, but the dread of what if weighed heavily on me. When I turned to Stoic wisdom, I practiced imagining what life might look like without them. At first it hurt, but with each reflection, I grew calmer. By the time the move became real, I wasn't shattered. I was prepared. That's the gift of negative visualization. When the actual loss arrives, it doesn't crush you. Instead, you can meet it with a calm, steady acceptance. And in the meantime, you appreciate the present moment more deeply, because you know it won't last forever. Lesson 4. Focus on what you can control. If there's one principle at the very core of Stoicism, it is this: separate what you can control from what you cannot. Epictetus, a freed slave who became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." The problem is, most of our suffering comes from trying to control what lies far beyond our reach. The choices of others, the flow of time, or the randomness of life. Emotional detachment is about shifting your energy inward, toward what truly belongs to you, your thoughts, your actions, and your character. Imagine this scenario. You pour your heart into a relationship, yet the other person chooses to leave. Your instinct is to chase, to convince, to fight against their decision. But no matter how much you beg, you cannot command someone's will. What you can control, however, is how you respond. With dignity, with self-respect, with clarity. I've lived this lesson myself in the aftermath of a broken relationship. For months, I wasted energy wishing I could change the other person's heart. Only when I accepted Epictetus's wisdom, that their choices were outside my control, did I find relief. Instead of trying to bend the external world, I began reshaping my inner one, and in that moment, I realized that peace comes not from winning battles you cannot fight, but from focusing on the victories that are yours to claim: your discipline, your words, your actions, and your mindset. Lesson 5. Reframe adversity as opportunity. Marcus Aurelius left us one of the most empowering Stoic truths. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To a Stoic, obstacles are not interruptions to your life's path. They are the path. Emotional detachment isn't about ignoring pain or pretending problems don't exist. It's about using adversity as raw material for growth. Think about fire. Throw wood onto it, and it doesn't shrink. It grows stronger. The Stoics believed we must train our minds to do the same. When we lose a job, it can either be seen as devastation or as the push we needed to discover a new opportunity. When betrayal strikes, it can either be the reason we close our hearts forever or the lesson that makes us wiser and more discerning. I remember a time when everything I had built seemed to collapse at once. Career setbacks, financial strain, and the end of a relationship. At first, it felt like the universe had singled me out for punishment. But when I applied this Stoic lens, I realized here was a chance to grow in resilience, to test the strength of my character. Each obstacle forced me to develop new skills, to think differently, to build endurance I didn't know I had. Looking back, I see that adversity wasn't my enemy. It was my teacher. This is the Stoic way. When challenges arise, don't ask, "Why me?" Instead, ask, "How can this serve me? What strength can I gain here?" Emotional detachment means removing the story of unfairness and embracing the truth that hardship is not the end of you. It's the making of you. Lesson 6. Master your desires and impulses. At the heart of Stoicism lies one simple truth. Unchecked desires are the root of much of our suffering. Epictetus warned, freedom is secured not by the fulfilling of men's desires, but by the removal of desire. When you think about it, how often do we tie our happiness to something just out of reach? A relationship we crave, a recognition we long for, a possession we believe will complete us. The Stoics taught that desire is like a flame. Feed it recklessly, and it consumes everything. Control it, and it becomes a steady light guiding your way. Emotional detachment means learning to stand back from your impulses, to pause before you let your cravings or longings dictate your peace. Imagine this. You're waiting on a message from someone you deeply care about. Each minute that ticks by without a reply fuels an itch of impatience. Your desire for validation begins to gnaw at you. Hours pass, and suddenly your happiness is hostage to 3 little dots on a screen. Have they lost interest? Did you say something wrong? Notice what's really happening. Your desire, not their silence, is tormenting you. I once lived this cycle myself, constantly checking my phone, obsessing over whether someone had responded. I realized my peace was tied to a desire I couldn't control. It wasn't until I practiced Stoic detachment, reminding myself that my worth was not defined by someone else's attention, that I began to reclaim my freedom. The Stoic approach is not to suppress desire completely, but to discipline it. To desire less is to live more fully. When you anchor your happiness to virtue, to character, to actions within your control, no external delay or rejection can shake your equilibrium. You shift from being ruled by your impulses to ruling them. True strength, the Stoics would argue, is not found in having everything you want, but in wanting less and being unshaken when desires go unmet. Lesson 7. Cultivate your inner fortress. Build resilience. Life is unpredictable. Relationships shift, careers falter, friends disappoint, and loss comes when we least expect it. The Stoics often reminded themselves that strength is not found in what happens to us, but in how we endure it. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think of resilience as your inner fortress, a mental stronghold that no storm can tear down. Emotional detachment is not about closing the gates and hiding away, but about reinforcing the walls so that life's winds don't destroy your peace. Without resilience, every setback feels like a catastrophe. With resilience, setbacks become stepping stones. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. How many times have you believed a certain event would break you? Yet here you are, still standing? Perhaps it was the end of a relationship you thought you couldn't live without, or a betrayal by someone you trusted completely. In the moment, it felt unbearable. But as time passed, you discovered something remarkable. You were far stronger than you thought. That strength was resilience already within you, waiting to be recognized. I remember when a close friend suddenly cut ties without explanation. The weight of confusion and rejection crushed me at first, but with time and deliberate practice of Stoic reflection, I shifted my focus. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" I asked, "How can I grow because of this?" Slowly, the pain turned into a lesson. I built resilience not by avoiding the hurt, but by walking through it with clarity. The Stoics believed resilience is trained like a muscle. Each time you face difficulty without collapsing, you strengthen your inner fortress. And just like physical training, the more you practice resilience, the more prepared you are for life's challenges. To cultivate this resilience, embrace setbacks as training. Treat life's hardships as sparring partners, not enemies. When a friend disappoints you, remind yourself this is a chance to practice patience. When rejection stings, remind yourself it is an opportunity to affirm your worth independent of others. Each trial becomes a brick laid in your fortress wall. In the end, resilience is not about being unshaken by life's storms, but about bending without breaking. Like a tree in the wind, you sway, but you stand tall. Your emotions may rise and fall, but your core remains unbroken. That, the Stoics would say, is the essence of freedom. Lesson 8. Practice voluntary discomfort. Train for life storms. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Stoicism is its embrace of discomfort. At first glance, this seems unnecessary. After all, why deliberately choose hardship when life already provides enough of it? But the Stoics believed that voluntarily exposing ourselves to small forms of discomfort prepares us for the inevitable trials that life will impose. Seneca once wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" The practice of voluntary discomfort is about building emotional and mental resilience by reducing our dependence on comfort. If you can train yourself to go without certain luxuries, to fast, to take a cold shower, to sleep on the floor instead of a soft bed, you loosen the grip of fear and attachment. When life suddenly strips you of comfort, you won't collapse. Instead, you'll recognize that you've faced this before, and you can endure. Think about it this way. When we grow accustomed to abundance, even the smallest deprivation feels unbearable. Lose access to Wi-Fi for a day, and suddenly frustration arises. Skip one meal, and panic sets in. But when you've intentionally practiced going without, You build the confidence to say, I can handle this. I don't need everything to go my way to remain at peace. In my own life, I once experimented with this during a particularly challenging period. I deliberately stopped relying on certain comforts that I usually clung to, like always needing background music to focus or always having elaborate meals to feel satisfied. At first, it felt unnecessary, almost punishing, but soon I discovered a new kind of freedom. I realized I didn't need constant stimulation or comfort to feel whole. This small training gave me strength later, when bigger challenges came unexpectedly. The Stoics knew that luxury can make us fragile, while discomfort makes us strong. Just like a warrior trains before battle, voluntary discomfort is your training for the storms of life. By practicing this regularly, you become unshaken when life throws real hardships your way. You don't just hope you'll be strong. You know it because you've tested yourself. Voluntary discomfort isn't about punishing yourself or rejecting joy. It's about reminding yourself of your true power, the ability to remain stable and content even without the things you think you need. When you detach from comfort, you discover that happiness is not found in possessions, convenience, or luxury. It's rooted in strength of character and clarity of mind. So the next time life hands you difficulty, a breakup, financial stress, or sudden change, you'll already be trained. You'll think, I've been here before. I've walked this path willingly. I can walk it again. And that realization makes you unshakable. Lesson 9. Memento mori. Remember death. At first, the phrase memento mori, remember you must die, might sound grim, even morbid. Why would the Stoics, who sought peace and joy in life, encourage people to constantly reflect on death? The answer is simple, because remembering death is the most powerful reminder of how to live. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. By contemplating mortality, we learn to appreciate life's fleeting beauty. Too often, we move through our days as if they are infinite, postponing joy, delaying love, and assuming tomorrow is guaranteed. But when you accept the certainty of death, procrastination loses its power. Suddenly, every sunrise feels precious, every conversation meaningful, and every opportunity too valuable to waste. Think of it this way. If you were told you had only a month left to live, how differently would you act? Would you still dwell on petty arguments, scroll mindlessly through distractions, or hold back your true feelings? Or would you live with urgency, courage, and presence? The Stoics remind us that death is not meant to paralyze us with fear. It is meant to awaken us to life. I once knew someone who lived as if time was endless. They worked tirelessly, always saying, I'll enjoy life later, once I've achieved enough. Vacations were delayed, friendships neglected, and family gatherings missed in the name of productivity. Then, unexpectedly, illness struck. Suddenly, later never came. Watching this unfold taught me a profound lesson. Life is fragile, and every day wasted in bitterness or delay is a day we never get back. Marcus Aurelius himself practiced this awareness daily. As emperor, with unimaginable power and responsibilities, he still reminded himself that he was mortal, no different from the common man. This humility grounded him, making his decisions sharper and his gratitude deeper. Memento mori doesn't mean obsessing over death. It means cherishing life. It encourages us to let go of grudges, to speak words of kindness more freely, to take risks we might otherwise fear. It means telling the people you love that you love them today, not waiting for a better time. When you live with the awareness of death, detachment naturally follows. You stop clinging desperately to people, possessions, or status, because you know they too are temporary. Instead, you savor them for what they are, fleeting gifts along your journey. So remember, death is not the enemy of life. Forgetting death is, by keeping mortality close, you don't become darker, you become brighter. You learn to live fully, love deeply, and detach wisely. That is the gift of memento mori. Lesson 10. Amor fati. Love your fate. One of the most profound Stoic teachings comes from the concept of amor fati. Love your fate. At first glance, it may seem unrealistic, even impossible, to love life's hardships. Who could possibly embrace loss, betrayal, or failure with affection? Yet Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics believed that true freedom lies in accepting life exactly as it unfolds, not merely tolerating it, but actively embracing it. Life will inevitably throw challenges in your path. Plans will crumble, people will disappoint you, and circumstances will test your patience. Amor fati is the radical notion of not only accepting these events, but finding a way to love them, to see even obstacles as necessary and meaningful parts of your journey. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you, woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?" This philosophy doesn't encourage passivity or resignation. It isn't about sitting idle and letting life push you around. Instead, it's about transforming perspective. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting, and frustration builds. A typical reaction might be anger or resentment, but practicing amor fati shifts your mindset. This moment, however inconvenient, is part of your story. It's a chance to practice patience, to reflect, to breathe, and to reclaim your inner calm despite external circumstances. I recall a period in my life when a professional project I had poured months of effort into suddenly fell through. My initial reaction was despair and frustration, the kind that makes your stomach knot and your thoughts spin. But recalling Stoic wisdom, I asked myself, what is within my control? Could I change the outcome? Number. Could I choose my response? Absolutely. I began to see the setback as a lesson in resilience and a chance to sharpen my skills. By embracing the situation, I not only recovered, but grew stronger, more disciplined, and more capable. Amor fati is intimately linked with emotional detachment. When you love your fate, you stop clinging to life unfolding perfectly or as expected. You release the illusion that life should conform to your desires. Instead, you align yourself with reality, seeing every event, joyous or painful, as an opportunity to exercise virtue, wisdom, and strength. Marcus Aurelius would remind us, misfortune is not a punishment, but a tool. A harsh word from a friend, a failed plan, or a loss of opportunity can all be embraced as chances to refine character. Amor fati transforms suffering into growth, setbacks into guidance, and the unpredictable into a teacher. In practical terms, embracing your fate means greeting each day with acceptance. You wake up and think, whatever happens today, I will meet it with virtue, courage, and grace. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, how can I turn this moment into an opportunity? Over time, life's uncertainties no longer dominate your emotions. They become part of the rhythm of your existence, neither feared nor resented. The Stoics understood that control over external events is limited, but control over your internal response is absolute. Amor fati is the art of transforming your reality by changing how you perceive it. The more you practice, the more you live without resistance, without bitterness, and without regret. You begin to truly love your life in all its chaos, unpredictability, and impermanence. By embracing your fate, you achieve a rare form of freedom. You are no longer a prisoner of expectation. You don't suffer needlessly over what cannot be changed. Instead, you find serenity, purpose, and clarity. As Marcus Aurelius taught, a man's worth is no greater than the measure of his acceptance of life as it comes. Lesson 11. The discipline of action. Stoicism is not merely a philosophy of thought, it is a philosophy of action. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that knowledge without execution is meaningless. Understanding the principles of life, virtue, and emotional detachment is powerful. But the real transformation comes when we apply them consistently. Acting in alignment with Stoic principles is the bridge between knowing what is right and living a life of purpose. Too often, we find ourselves trapped in overthinking. We analyze situations endlessly, waiting for the perfect moment to act. The Stoics would call this procrastination a subtle form of self-sabotage. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't delay. Don't let your life slip by while you hesitate." The discipline of action is about showing up, doing your part, and exercising your virtue regardless of external outcomes or recognition. Consider a situation where someone has wronged you, perhaps a friend or colleague. Your first impulse might be resentment or avoidance. Stoicism teaches that the only thing you can control is your response. Action, guided by reason and virtue. Whether it's calmly addressing the situation, setting boundaries, or releasing resentment, is the only path forward. In my own life, I experienced conflict with a close friend. My initial instinct was to brood, replay conversations, and hope the situation resolved itself. But I realized that waiting or complaining would only prolong suffering. Instead, I chose to act thoughtfully. I reached out, expressed my feelings calmly, and allowed space for understanding. The result wasn't perfect, but my own peace of mind was restored. Action in Stoicism is never about reactionary behavior. It's deliberate, disciplined, and grounded in principle. Every choice becomes an opportunity to exercise virtue, whether it's patience, courage, justice, or wisdom. You may face situations where the outcomes are uncertain or unfavorable. Yet the Stoics remind us that the quality of our actions matters more than external validation. By consistently acting with integrity and purpose, you cultivate resilience, character, and trust in yourself. The discipline of action also intersects with emotional detachment. By committing to purposeful action rather than passive reaction, you reclaim agency over your life. You are no longer a slave to circumstances or the whims of others. Instead, your energy is invested in what you can influence, your own conduct, decisions, and mindset. This focus is liberating. You begin to notice that while life's uncertainties remain, your responses are increasingly grounded, intentional, and constructive. Marcus Aurelius would often reflect on the impermanence of time and the futility of delay. Life is fleeting, and waiting for ideal conditions to act only wastes what little time we have. The discipline of action is about honoring that precious time. Each day becomes a practice, acting with purpose, embracing responsibility, and moving forward even when the path is unclear. In practical terms, this lesson can be applied to relationships, work, personal development, and daily challenges. When you feel overwhelmed by emotional attachment or uncertainty, ask yourself, what is the next right action I can take that aligns with virtue and my values? Focus on that action and let go of outcomes beyond your control. Over time, this mindset transforms hesitation into confidence, fear into clarity, and distraction into purposeful effort. By internalizing the discipline of action, you live not in theory, but in reality. You embody stoicism through daily choices, building a life of integrity, resilience, and inner peace. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Lesson 12. Finding Inner Freedom. Stoicism ultimately teaches us that true freedom is not found in external circumstances, but within the mind. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the idea that while we cannot control the world, we can control our judgments, reactions, and desires. Emotional detachment, resilience, and virtuous action all lead toward this ultimate goal: inner freedom. Inner freedom is the liberation from being controlled by others' opinions, by fleeting desires, or by circumstances beyond our control. It is the ability to remain composed in the face of loss, criticism, or uncertainty. The Stoics believed that most human suffering arises from trying to hold on to what is inherently impermanent: wealth, status, relationships, or approval, rather than accepting life as it unfolds. By practicing detachment, cultivating rational thought, and embracing the discipline of action, we free ourselves from the chains of expectation and dependency. Consider a scenario in which you are deeply affected by someone else's opinion of you, a friend, colleague, or family member. The natural human reaction might be to seek validation, to adjust your behavior, or to feel hurt when their approval is absent. Stoicism teaches that this is a misplacement of control. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. By shifting focus inward, you reclaim your autonomy. You decide how you interpret events, and in doing so, you gain freedom from external influence. Inner freedom also emerges from detachment from unfulfilled desires. Much of life's anxiety stems from wanting things to be different than they are, wanting permanence where there is none, or certainty in a world defined by change. The Stoic path encourages acceptance, mindfulness, and reflection on the impermanence of all things. By acknowledging the transient nature of life, you stop resisting reality and start acting in harmony with it. In my own experience, practicing this perspective helped me navigate heartbreak and professional setbacks. Rather than being consumed by frustration or loss, I focused on what I could control: my actions, my thoughts, and my attitude, and discovered a profound sense of calm even amidst turbulence. Marcus Aurelius also emphasizes that inner freedom is a daily practice, not a final destination. Each day presents moments where attachments, impulses, or reactive emotions challenge your equanimity. The Stoic approach is to treat these moments as opportunities to exercise judgment, self-discipline, and reason. By consistently practicing emotional detachment, negative visualization, rational reflection, and purposeful action, you train yourself to respond rather than react, to remain composed rather than swept away, and to cultivate resilience in the face of life's uncertainties. Practically, finding inner freedom can transform every aspect of your life. In relationships, It allows you to love without clinging and to support others without losing yourself. In work, it helps you pursue excellence without becoming enslaved to outcomes or recognition. In daily life, it nurtures contentment and gratitude because your peace is no longer dependent on external conditions, but anchored in your own mind. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches that the highest form of freedom is self-mastery. By governing your thoughts, aligning your actions with virtue, and detaching from what you cannot control, you become resilient, grounded, and unshakable. Life will inevitably present challenges, disappointments, and losses. But with inner freedom, you face them with clarity, strength, and serenity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Cultivate these thoughts, practice these principles, and you will discover the profound liberty that Stoics have revered for centuries. Closing thoughts. These 12 Stoic lessons, embracing impermanence, mastering emotions, practicing negative visualization, focusing on what you can control, accepting reality, reflecting on the bigger picture, cultivating gratitude, practicing mindfulness, exercising discipline, facing weaknesses, embracing purposeful action, and finding inner freedom, provide a roadmap for emotional resilience, self-mastery, and a meaningful life. At Sculpted Grace, we believe Stoicism isn't just philosophy. It's a practical guide for living with clarity, purpose, and serenity. When you apply these lessons consistently, you discover a life where challenges become opportunities, losses become growth, and your inner world becomes a sanctuary of strength and peace. Remember, emotional detachment is not about shutting off your heart. It's about freeing it from unnecessary suffering. Each lesson builds on the next, creating a resilient mindset that empowers you to navigate relationships, setbacks, and life's uncertainties with composure and wisdom. Start today. Reflect on these lessons, practice them deliberately, and observe how your perspective transforms. Life will always change. People come and go, situations shift, and time moves forward. But with Stoic wisdom guiding you, your inner life remains steady, your mind remains free, and your spirit remains unshaken. Stay strong, stay grounded, and continue walking the path of virtue. Sculpted Grace will be here with you every step of the way.